Spiral. This movie is directed by the directors of 2, 3, and 4, Darren Lynn Bousman, and it stars Chris Rock and Samuel Jackson. In this movie, there are about 5 police officers that are being trapped by the Jigsaw copycat killer. One of the officers' name is Detective Boswick. Alright. Detective Boswick gets trapped when he's chasing someone who stole a purse. He chases the guy into the subway tunnel. He loses track of him. Then a man in a pig mask abducts him. He finds himself hanging in the subway tunnel by his tongue. And the only way he can set himself free is by taking a leap of faith. But however, a train is coming around the tracks. He tries to jump, but it's too late, and he gets ran over by the train. This leads to Ezekiel Banks and his partner William coming onto the scene, and they have to investigate and go through a lot of corruption, a lot of murders to find out who the Spiral killer is. And the reason why Detective Boswick is being tested here was because he lied on the witness stand. Alright. The second cop that gets trapped, he's a dirty cop too. He let Ezekiel Banks get shot in the back. He also shot and killed an innocent man. So he gets trapped when he's looking for a guy named like Benny Rice. So he's in some type of warehouse. He's sitting down inside a bathtub that's being electrocuted, and his fingers are caught in some type of trap. And the only way he can set himself free is for the machine to pull his fingers apart. And it's pretty painful. But he fails to do that in time, and he gets electrocuted. So he's dead. Then you have another officer. Ezekiel Banks visits him at a church. Banks thinks it's him. Alright, this cop was a dirty cop. He shot and killed an innocent witness. He blamed the witness for having a gun, but that wasn't the case. So he finds himself hanging at some type of steel factory. And Ezekiel Banks, he walks into the factory. He sees him hanging there. And he finds a tape recorder. And it says, you can leave him hanging, or you can save him by throwing away a key or something like that. So, about like every 30 seconds, shards of glass just fly through the guy. Ezekiel Banks tries to save him, but it's too late. He didn't make it. The forward officer trap is the head of the department. Her name's like Angie. So, out on the street, some guy gets stabbed by the Spiral killer. Everyone flees, except for Angie. She goes down to the basement to find Ezekiel Banks. So she goes to the basement. The room is being flooded with gas. So she passes out, and she finds herself laying down on a table. And the only way she can free herself is by severing her spinal cord. But she didn't do that, so the trap was a bunch of hot wax would cover her face. So she didn't make it either. And last but not least, Ezekiel Banks' father, Marcus Banks, played by Samuel Jackson, he gets trapped. And he's caught in some type of spider web. You know, he has blood thinners. They're connected to a jar, and he's pretty much draining his blood. And the only way for Ezekiel Banks can save him is by shooting the target. So Ezekiel Banks, he walks into the steel factory where his father's being held captive, and he finds out who the Spiral Killer is. And that is his partner William, and he can't believe it. The guy who the officer shot in the flashbacks was William's father. So, William, he hates dirty cops, he hates corruption, and he wants Ezekiel Banks to join him. Ezekiel Banks does shoot the target. So his father, his restraints were loosened. So William gets away. The SWAT team comes on in. But when they knock down the door, the strings to Marcus Banks were still attached. So Marcus Banks is once again hoisted up in the air. The strings force him to pull a gun, and the SWAT team shoots Marcus Banks. So they shot the chief of police, and now he's dead. So that's pretty much what happened here in this movie. What I like about it, one, it's a throwback. Right? There's not really a lot of gore, even though there are gory moments. The movie is really focused on the characters and what the people did to get in the traps, just like the first movie. I like Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. There's some veteran presence in this movie. 2, there's like a moral lesson. Each trap has some type of moral significance. You know, if the trap victims were to survive, the traps were winnable, but it came at a cost. So Boswick, he was hanging by the tongue. So if he jumped and landed and survived, he would have lost his tongue because he lied on the stand. One of the officers would have lost his fingers because he pulled the trigger. And one of the officers, the clue was, throw away the key. The key's inside a trash can. What goes inside a trash can? Dirt. What is that officer that was hanging in the steel factory? A dirty cop. Angie. She's the head of the department. So she would have lost her spinal cord, which is right here, right behind your head. Marcus Banks, the trap is draining his blood. That signifies the bloodshed that he spilled when he was in charge of the department years ago. There was a program that he ran called Article 8, and that allowed for the cops to get dirtier in order to keep the streets cleaner. There is some type of moral lesson. Like the mystery, suspenseful vibe this has, I think the film is shot well, just like Jigsaw. There's a bigger budget in this movie. So that's stuff that I liked. What I didn't really like all the flashbacks. It's just like the other movies. They don't really tell you a lot of things. What happened, they just give you clues about what happened in the past. And the film thinks it's the smartest film ever by then showing you all the flashbacks, and now you got the picture together. What else I didn't like, I thought there was a little bit too much profanity in this movie. I know it's rated R, but I'm not a really big fan of profanity. Next, Chris Rock's character. I liked him in some aspects, but when he was cracking jokes, they just didn't land for me. Alright, and then the culprit, William, he's the Spiral Killer. I thought it was way too predictable. I saw it coming from a mile away, even before the movie hit theaters. I watched the trailers, saw the trailer breakdowns. They said that this film would explore corruption. And they said that the culprit is most likely going to be a cop. And I was like, it's got to be Ezekiel Banks' partner. Because who's going to know more about Ezekiel Banks than his partner? Nobody. But Spiral, thought the movie was good. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I like the fact this movie brings some realistic tones. They're exploring corruption in the police department and that's what we're seeing in the modern times. But I'll give it 8. Where is it on my list of Saw movies? We're gonna go ahead and rank them. Number 1, I'm gonna go for Saw 2. Number 2, I'm gonna go for Jigsaw. 3, I'm gonna go for Saw 1. 4, I'm gonna go for Saw 4. 5, I'm gonna go for Saw 5. 6, I'm gonna say Spiral. 7 is Saw 3. 8 is gonna be Saw 6. And 9 is gonna be Saw 7. So that's kind of my rankings of these films. But Spiral, I liked it. I'd like to see Spiral 2 and see what happens. I give it an 8. But like I said, Spiral is pretty good. 8 out of 10. I don't know if I would say it reinvented the franchise, but it gave the franchise more stories that they can tell. And that's kind of what I want to see in the future. Smaller scale stories being told in the Saw universe. This has been your Spiral review.